The skies above Earth burned with the light of alien warships. They were vast, like floating cities made of metal and fire, casting long shadows over ruined fields and shattered cities below. Their engines hummed with a power no human machine had ever known, and their weapons glowed with the brilliance of suns. The alien empire had come to conquer, and they had come laughing. On the ground their soldiers marched in rows of perfect order. Each one was covered head to toe in sleek silver armor that shimmered as if it were made of liquid light. The armor bent and twisted the air around it, cloaking the soldiers in an aura that seemed untouchable. Plasma blasts fired from training cannons fizzled harmlessly against their suits, absorbed and deflected as if the energy itself bowed before them. They looked like gods of war, and they knew it. When their commanders caught sight of the humans preparing for battle, they broke into mocking laughter. The human soldiers stood in the ruins of their own cities. Dust clung to their uniforms. Their tanks and vehicles looked like toys compared to the alien walkers that stalked the battlefield. But it was not their weapons that made the aliens laugh. It was the armor. Human armor was nothing like the sleek, elegant designs of the invaders. Instead, it was thick, heavy, and crude in shape. Plates of dark metal wrapped around the body, layered like scales with bolts and rivets holding them together. The helmets looked bulky, the visors narrow. From a distance, the humans looked like walking machines patched together in desperation. Not warriors of flesh and blood. Scrap metal wrapped on soft flesh, one alien general sneered, his voice echoing across the battlefield through his command amplifier. His soldiers laughed in unison, the sound sharp and cruel. Another alien pointed at a human squad trudging forward. Look at them. They cannot even move properly. Clumsy, like beasts dragging chains. The laughter grew louder. From the safety of their armored lines, the alien officers jeered and mocked. Their arrogance was complete. Why wouldn't it be? They had crushed dozens of worlds, burned fleets to ash, and enslaved species far more advanced than humans. And here, on this primitive blue planet, they faced soldiers dressed like medieval knights. It was a joke, and yet the humans kept walking. Step by step, they advanced across the battlefield. Dust rose from their boots. Their armor, though ugly and unshining, caught the faint glimmer of the alien suns above. Behind their visors, no one could see their eyes, but there was something in the way they moved, calm, steady, unshaken by the insults raining down upon them. The alien generals exchanged glances, amused but faintly curious. Why did the humans not tremble? Why did they not hide? Why did they march as though they carried a secret no one else could see? Do they not understand? One alien captain asked his commander. They face weapons that can split mountains. Their armor will melt like wax under our fire. The commander waved a dismissive hand. Let them come closer. Let them think they have courage. When the time comes, we will turn their bones to dust. The alien soldiers prepared their weapons, sleek rifles that glowed with coiled energy, cannons that hummed with power enough to rip open tanks like paper. But then, in a move that stunned even their own troops, the alien commanders gave a strange order. "Do not fire yet," one general said, his voice calm and arrogant. "Let them walk. Let them believe they stand a chance. Their fear will taste sweeter when we crush them." And so the battlefield fell into silence. On one side, rows of alien warriors stood glittering in their radiant armor, weapons raised but still. On the other, the humans advanced in their heavy suits, dark and battered, dragging shadows across the earth. The distance closed. Every step echoed like a drumbeat of defiance. The aliens continued to laugh, but inside that laughter was a faint crack, a small thread of unease. Something about the humans' march was wrong. Why were they so calm? Why did they move as though the outcome was already written in their favor? The alien laughter faltered just for a moment. The silence grew heavy. Dust swirled around the human line, clinging to their armor. Their weapons were simple, rifles, machine guns, blades strapped to their sides, but they carried them with steady hands. The closer they came, the more the aliens' jeering felt forced, like nervous noise meant to hide the growing knot of doubt in their throats. The alien general sneered again, trying to mask his unease. "Look at them, rust and bolts. They wear coffins on their backs." His soldiers laughed on command, but the sound was hollow. The humans did not speak. They did not answer. They simply marched forward. Their silence was louder than any words, more terrifying than any roar. It was the silence of men and women who knew something their enemies did not. The alien commander leaned forward in his command seat, eyes narrowing. "What secret do they hide?" he whispered. And still the humans came. The moment stretched long, like the pause before a storm breaks. The human soldiers stood in formation, their armor dark and scarred by years of war on their own soil. They had no shimmering shields, no elegant designs, just metal plates and silence. Their calmness was unbearable to the alien generals who watched from command towers above the battlefield. Finally, the order came. Fire. The alien army unleashed its fury. From 1,000 rifles came burning lances of plasma. The air itself seemed to ignite as green and white bolts streaked toward the advancing humans. The ground exploded around them, chunks of earth rising high into the sky. Buildings already half ruined were torn apart in blinding flashes. The battlefield became a storm of fire and light. Alien cannons joined the slaughter. Massive plasma rounds roared into the earth, leaving behind craters wide enough to swallow tanks. Drones descended from the skies, their wings carrying laser arrays that swept the ground like scythes. The humans vanished into smoke and dust. From the alien lines came triumphant laughter. To them it was already over. No creature, no armor, no primitive world could survive such firepower. The soldiers cheered, slamming their fists against their brilliant chest plates. "Pathetic," one alien shouted. "They melt like insects under the sun." But as the smoke began to clear, the laughter turned to silence. Shapes moved in the dust. At first it seemed impossible. Ghosts, shadows, tricks of light. Yet step by step the figures emerged. Human soldiers, their armor glowing faintly where the plasma had struck. The bulky plates were blackened, scarred, but intact. Not a single man or woman had fallen. They kept walking. The aliens stared in disbelief. Their weapons had leveled cities. Their cannons had torn through the shields of war fleets. But here, against crude human armor, the blasts had done nothing. The alien general slammed a clawed fist against the rail of his command platform. "Increase power." Full barrage. Obediently his soldiers fired again, doubling their assault. Plasma storms rained down, turning the earth into rivers of molten rock. The air shimmered with heat, choking even the alien soldiers in their armored suits, and still, the humans stood. Their armor glowed hotter, light pulsing across the plates, as though the metal itself were alive. Energy bled into the ground, sparks snapping off like lightning. The armor did not melt. It drank the fire, absorbed it as though it hungered for more. One alien commander's voice broke through the chaos, strained with disbelief. "Their armor. It feeds on our weapons." Whispers spread across the alien ranks. Fear crept into their voices. This was not how the war was supposed to go. The humans kept advancing, step by steady step. They raised their rifles now, primitive slug throwers by alien standards, weapons that fired chunks of metal instead of light. The aliens laughed at such technology in every conquered world, calling it ancient, useless, laughable against energy shields. Yet when the first human bullet struck, alien soldiers screamed. The rounds punched through shields as if they weren't there, tearing into silver armor and spraying alien blood across the ground. Plasma barriers, designed to resist beams of light and radiation bursts, did nothing against raw, simple kinetic force. The aliens staggered back. Their perfect lines wavered. The humans fired again, the staccato roar of gunfire filling the battlefield. Bullets ripped through alien formations, carving gaps where moments before had stood unshakable warriors. The same generals who mocked human armor now watched their troops fall in heaps. Desperation spread. Alien heavy walkers stomped forward, massive machines bristling with cannons. They unleashed a storm of ion beams, great streaks of crackling lightning meant to vaporize anything in their path. The human line seemed to vanish under the attack. The battlefield glowed white-hot, the ground shattering beneath the power. But then, like shadows rising from the fire, the humans stepped out once more. Their armor pulsed brighter, charged with the energy they had absorbed. The plates glimmered like molten stars, each soldier now a beacon of terrifying resilience. The walkers paused, hesitating in confusion. That hesitation was their death. A squad of humans charged, moving with impossible speed despite their heavy suits. Explosives strapped to their belts were hurled at the walkers, detonating in thunderous bursts. Alien shields shattered. The towering machines collapsed, burning wrecks spilling across the ground. The battlefield was no longer filled with alien laughter. It was filled with the screams of disbelief and panic. "They cannot be killed." One alien cried, "They should not exist." Another shouted, firing wildly into the advancing line. The human soldiers did not break formation. The battlefield was still smoldering. Alien fire had scorched the land until it glowed with molten rivers, but the humans remained. Their armor pulsed faintly, as if alive, feeding on the very energy meant to destroy it. From the alien command towers, silence replaced laughter. Generals whispered to each other in disbelief, their arrogance crumbling. "It is impossible," one said. No primitive world could build such protection, but Earth had far from the battlefield, deep in hidden bunkers carved into mountains and old underground cities. The story of the armor began years before the invasion. At first, humanity had no hope. Their satellites burned in the skies, their fleets scattered like ash. The alien empire arrived with technology so advanced that entire nations surrendered without firing a shot. But not everyone bent the knee. Scientists, engineers, and soldiers gathered in secret. They had no time to copy alien weapons. Even if they could, it would take centuries to match the Empire's technology. Humanity's only chance was to think differently, to find strength not in imitation, but in invention. In one of those bunkers, a scientist named Dr. Keller stood over a glowing slab of metal. It was not alien. It was Earth's own creation, born from desperation. The slab shimmered with strange colors, shifting between black and silver, alive with sparks that danced across its surface. It was a fusion of nanofibers, exotic alloys, and magnetic lattices woven together in ways never attempted before. It was ugly compared to alien craftsmanship, but its power lay not in beauty but in defiance. The discovery had come by accident. During early battles, human weapons factories had been obliterated by alien plasma strikes. Yet in the ruins, some metals had fused together in ways no lab experiment could reproduce. The heat, the radiation, the violence of alien fire had birthed something new. Scientists studied the strange remains, and slowly, a terrifying idea emerged. What if they could build armor that did not resist energy but consumed it? In the bunker, the first prototypes nearly killed their test subjects. Armor melted, magnetic fields collapsed, soldiers were cooked alive inside their suits. Failure after failure piled up. But humans are stubborn. They refined the design, adjusted the flow of absorbed energy, wove in cooling systems, and added primitive but reliable layers of steel and ceramic as backups. It took years. It took lives, but eventually they succeeded. The armor looked clumsy, heavy, unrefined, but beneath the dark plates it held a secret. Every hit from alien weapons fed into a core of magnetic fields and nanofiber veins. Plasma became power. Ion beams became strength. The more energy poured into the armor, the more resilient it became. Where aliens built technology to shine, humans built technology to endure. Back on the battlefield, alien commanders ordered new scans. Their machines analyzed the human armor, trying to understand. Results came back confusing, impossible. Their armor? "It is primitive," one officer stammered. "It has no energy fields, no shielding systems, no resonance circuits. Then why do they still stand?" The general roared. No scan could reveal the truth. The humans had hidden it well. To alien eyes, the armor was a joke, scrap metal and bolts. Yet inside, it was a predator disguised as prey. Meanwhile, in the human lines, soldiers remembered the faces of the scientists who had died creating it. They remembered the oath, never surrender, never kneel. Each step forward carried that memory. They did not speak, but their silence was filled with the weight of sacrifice. One soldier, Captain Rains, crouched behind a ruined wall, bullets clutched in his gauntlet. Plasma blasts struck his armor, making it glow. He smiled grimly. "They don't get it," he muttered to himself. "The harder they hit us, the stronger we get." Beside him, another soldier nodded. "Then let them keep firing." On the alien command deck, panic spread. Generals who once mocked humans now shouted in rage and fear, "Why do they not fall? Why do their weapons pierce ours when ours cannot pierce theirs?" The truth was simple. The alien empire had grown arrogant. They had perfected energy weapons but ignored the old. To them, bullets were relics, blades were fossils. Their shields had never been designed to stop something so simple, so crude. Humans had turned that arrogance into their weapon. Word spread quickly through alien ranks. Whispers crawled like shadows. They cannot be harmed. They wear the fire of our weapons like a cloak. The more we attack, the stronger they become. Alien soldiers, once fearless, now hesitated to pull their triggers. Every shot felt like feeding a monster. Their eyes darted to the dark, heavy figures of human soldiers, advancing without pause. In the bunker archives, Dr. Keller's final words still echoed in recordings. "We cannot match their brilliance. So we will not try. We will give our soldiers armor that looks like weakness. Let them laugh. Their laughter will blind them, right until the moment it kills them." And now those words were becoming prophecy. The secret of human armor was out, though the aliens did not yet understand it fully. All they knew was this: their most powerful weapons had met something they could not conquer. The battlefield was no longer theirs. The balance of fear had shifted. The battlefield burned like a scar across the earth. Alien ships hovered above, their cannons glowing with unspent fury, while on the ground, their soldiers stood frozen. They had unleashed enough firepower to level cities, and the humans were still advancing. For the first time, the Empire's warriors hesitated. The human line glowed faintly, armor pulsing with the energy of absorbed plasma. Their steps were slow but unbroken, boots crunching over glassy ground melted by alien weapons. Every movement was steady, deliberate and silent. Alien soldiers gripped their rifles tighter, claws trembling. They had seen fear before, but not like this. This was something new. In the command tower, General Threx bared his fangs in frustration. His sleek armor shimmered with authority, but his voice cracked as he roared at his officers. "Why do they not fall? Why do they still walk?" The reply came hesitant. "Our weapons. They only feed them, General. Every strike makes their armor stronger." Threx slammed a clawed fist into the console, cracking its polished surface. "Then bring heavier fire. Deploy the Annihilator squads." Moments later, the ground shook as alien heavy troops arrived. Monsters in armor twice the size of their comrades, carrying weapons meant to erase fortresses. They marched forward with thunderous steps, weapons glowing like miniature suns. The alien infantry cheered, their courage briefly restored. These were the strongest of their kind, the ones who had ended rebellions across the stars. Surely nothing could withstand them. The Annihilators opened fire. Beams of ionized energy cut across the battlefield, exploding against the human soldiers with apocalyptic force. The ground split open. Shattered stone rose into the air. The blast lit the sky brighter than lightning. When the dust cleared, silence fell again. The humans stood, scarred, smoking, but alive. Their armor blazed brighter than ever, lines of molten light running across the plates, as if they were filled with the fire of the weapons themselves. One soldier raised his rifle. Another raised a blade. Then as one they advanced. The Annihilators, who had never once known defeat, faltered. For the first time they stepped back. Fear spread like a contagion. Alien officers barked orders, their voices cracking. Soldiers shouted in panic. The tight discipline of the Empire began to unravel. Their arrogance, once a weapon sharper than any blade, crumbled under the weight of disbelief. "They should be ash," one soldier screamed. "They cannot be real," cried another. General Threx snarled, but deep in his chest a cold seed of doubt took root. From orbit a new weapon was called down. The Empire had used it sparingly, only against the most stubborn worlds. A massive orbital cannon shifted its aim toward the battlefield. Energy gathered in its core, a swirling sphere of annihilation. "Fire!" Threx commanded. The sky tore open. A beam of pure destruction crashed into the earth, blasting a crater that devoured everything for half a mile. Alien soldiers shielded their eyes from the brightness, their laughter returning briefly. No life could survive that. But then, from the edge of the smoking pit, figures emerged. Human soldiers, glowing brighter than ever, their armor alight with absorbed power. Each step made the ground tremble, charged with stolen energy. The laughter died in an instant. Whispers spread across alien ranks, hushed but venomous with fear. They cannot be killed. Their armor, it grows stronger with every strike. They are demons in steel. Some aliens dropped their weapons, backing away. Others fired wildly, only to see their shots vanish into the humans' glowing plates. Panic rippled through the ranks like a wave. For the first time in the Empire's long history, its soldiers broke formation. In the command tower, Threx's second-in-command turned toward him, voice low and trembling. "General, if we continue, we will only make them stronger," Threx hissed, baring sharp teeth. "You dare suggest retreat against primitives?" But even he felt the weight of truth. Every weapon they unleashed had failed. Every new attack only deepened the nightmare. And all the while the humans said nothing. They did not gloat, did not roar in victory. They simply walked forward in silence, unstoppable as the march of time. On the human side, Captain Rains raised a hand, signaling his squad to halt for a moment. Their armor flickered with energy, humming softly as though alive. The battlefield lay in ruins. Smoke curled upward from shattered alien machines, the ground scorched black by endless fire. Yet still the humans advanced, silent shadows in glowing armor that seemed to grow brighter with every strike. Alien soldiers stumbled back, their weapons shaking in their claws. Their generals screamed for them to hold the line, but discipline had shattered. Fear ruled now, and then it happened. The humans stopped marching. For the first time since the battle began, they did not simply absorb and endure. They prepared to strike back. Captain Rains lifted his rifle, the weapon looking crude compared to the elegant alien plasma guns. His armor hummed with stolen energy, arcs of light crawling over the plates like living lightning. He gave no speech, no command of glory. He simply pointed forward. The human line raised their weapons and fired. The roar of bullets thundered across the battlefield. Not beams of plasma, not streams of fire, just simple metal slugs ancient by galactic standards. But when those bullets struck alien soldiers, the results were catastrophic. Plasma shields designed for energy failed instantly. The kinetic force tore through armor, splintering bones, spilling green blood into the dirt. Aliens screamed as they fell, their pride crumbling with them. The Empire had built its defenses around arrogance. They had never prepared for something as crude as bullets, and now that arrogance was killing them. A squad of human soldiers surged forward, moving faster than seemed possible in their heavy suits. Their armor glowed with stolen fire, propelling them like living engines of war. One soldier leapt onto the back of an alien walker, planting charges against its armor. The explosion ripped it apart, scattering twisted metal across the field. Another soldier drove a blade into an alien officer's chest, cutting through silver armor as if it were cloth. The aliens fired wildly, desperate. Plasma blasts lit the sky, but every strike only strengthened the human soldiers. The battlefield became a nightmare loop. Every attack fed the humans, and every defense of the aliens crumbled before the simple brutality of bullets and blades. From the command tower, General Threx's voice cracked. They are tearing us apart with Stone Age weapons." His second-in-command turned, horror written across his features. "General, our troops are breaking. We must withdraw." Threx snarled, but even he saw the truth. The pride of the Empire was drowning in its own arrogance. The humans, mocked for their armor, were now unstoppable. On the battlefield, the shift was clear. The aliens no longer looked like conquerors. They looked like prey. A human squad pushed deep into enemy lines, their armor blazing. Bullets slammed through alien ranks. Bayonets and knives flashed, each strike finding its mark. The silence of the humans was more terrifying than any roar. No taunts, no cries of victory, just relentless precision. Aliens who had once laughed now screamed in terror. Some threw down their weapons and ran. Others begged their officers for orders that never came. The Empire's invincible soldiers were nothing more than targets now. Captain Rains pressed forward, cutting through alien lines with his squad. Plasma blasts slammed into his armor, charging it brighter, feeding his every step. He moved like a storm, every bullet finding its mark, every strike tearing deeper into the enemy. He paused only once, glancing back at his soldiers. Their armor glowed like molten suns, their weapons smoking. In that moment, Rains realized something. This was no longer survival. This was victory. Above in the alien fleet, panic spread through the command halls. Reports poured in, entire battalions shattered, walkers destroyed, annihilators slaughtered. An admiral's voice shook. "If this continues, they will overrun our landing forces." Another barked in panic. "Impossible. They are primitives. They should not be winning." Yet the truth was undeniable. The Empire had unleashed its might, and still the humans walked. Now they were no longer just enduring. They were striking back with the fury of a world that refused to bow. On the ground, the turning point was complete. The humans had proven that alien weapons could not kill them, and their own simple, brutal tactics could shatter the Empire's most advanced soldiers. The fear in the aliens' eyes was no longer just fear of death, it was fear of shame. The proud conquerors who mocked human armor as scrap were now broken by it. General Threx gripped the rail of his tower, claws digging into the metal. His voice was a whisper full of disbelief. "We are losing." The words spread like poison. Officers looked at each other with wide, terrified eyes. Soldiers below heard the whispers, and their panic grew. In the silence that followed, the humans fired again. A storm of bullets tore through alien ranks. The battlefield that had once belonged to the Empire now belonged to Earth. The turning point had come. The war was no longer about survival. It was about conquest. And for the first time in their history, the alien empire faced the unthinkable: defeat at the hands of the species they had mocked most. The battlefield was unrecognizable. Alien bodies lay scattered among the ruins of their once perfect formations. Their shining armor, once symbols of dominance, was cracked and blackened, torn apart by crude human bullets and blades. The humans stood tall, their own armor glowing like molten steel, pulsing with stolen power. The laughter of the Empire had been silenced. In the command tower, General Threx's claws shook against the railing. His voice was a guttural growl, his pride shattered. "This cannot be. We are the Empire. We have crushed 100 worlds. We cannot fall to them." His officers said nothing. They had no answers. Their faces, once filled with arrogance, were pale with disbelief. They too had seen the impossible, humans surviving every weapon, every strategy. Word spread quickly across the alien fleet above Earth. Messages from the ground painted a picture of horror. Troops falling back. Walkers destroyed. Our weapons ineffective. "They cannot be killed," commanders whispered in disbelief. Mutiny broke out on some ships. Soldiers refused to deploy, terrified of facing the humans. For the first time in the Empire's history, fear poisoned discipline, and worse than fear, shame. The Empire had mocked humans as primitives, laughed at their scrap metal armor. Now those same humans stood unbroken, while the Empire bled. Pride, the foundation of their conquests, was crumbling. On the battlefield below, Captain Rains and his soldiers pressed forward. Each step left scorched footprints in the cracked earth, their armor glowing brighter, alive with absorbed energy. Alien soldiers scattered before them, abandoning weapons, abandoning pride, but Rains knew it wasn't over. He looked up at the sky, at the massive fleet hovering above. "They'll try something desperate," he muttered. He was right. In orbit, the alien war council raged in chaos. Admirals screamed over each other, voices sharp with panic. "We must retreat." "No, to retreat is dishonor worse than death." "Then what? Shall we let primitives defeat the Empire?" The chamber fell silent as one voice cut through the storm. It was Lord Vale, the warlord who commanded the entire invasion. His voice was low, trembling with fury. "If our weapons cannot kill them, then we will erase them." Gasps filled the chamber. They all knew what he meant. The planet cracker. The planet cracker was the Empire's most terrible weapon. A supercannon mounted on Vael's flagship, capable of destroying entire continents in a single blast. It had only been used a handful of times, against the most defiant worlds. Entire civilizations had been erased in fire. To use it here on a single battlefield was madness. But Vael's pride had been broken. He would rather scorch Earth itself than admit defeat. His command echoed across the fleet. "Target the human line. Fire the planet cracker." On the ground, alien soldiers felt the air tremble. The skies darkened as the flagship above shifted into firing position. A terrible hum filled the heavens, a vibration that made the Earth itself quake. The humans stopped advancing. Even their glowing armor seemed to pause, as though sensing what was coming. Captain Rains looked up. His visor dimmed against the blinding light gathering in orbit. He knew this was no ordinary weapon. This was annihilation. The alien soldiers, watching the glow build in the sky, began to laugh again. But this laughter was nervous, strained, desperate. Now they will burn. Not even they can survive this. The humans did not speak. They did not retreat. They simply stood, bracing themselves, silent as ever. The weapon fired. A beam of raw destruction screamed down from the heavens, a torrent of light brighter than the sun. It ripped through the clouds, splitting the sky open. The earth convulsed as the beam struck, blasting a crater wider than a city. The shockwave hurled alien soldiers into the air. Buildings crumbled into dust. Rivers of fire spread for miles. The battlefield disappeared in blinding light. From the command tower, General Threx grinned with savage triumph. Now they are ash. Alien soldiers cheered, though the sound was hollow, uncertain. The ground still shook from the impact, the sky still burning with the afterglow. Nothing could have survived, nothing. And then the smoke cleared. From the edge of the crater, figures began to move. Slowly, like ghosts stepping out of a nightmare, the humans emerged. Their armor glowed brighter than ever, molten light streaming from every plate. The planet cracker had not destroyed them. It had fed them. They walked out of the fire like gods of war, unbroken, unstoppable. The cheers of the aliens died instantly. Terror replaced hope. Generals stared in silence. Even Lord Vile, watching from his flagship, felt his blood run cold. The battlefield was silent. Silent in a way that felt unnatural, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Smoke rose from the colossal crater where the planet cracker had struck, curling in the air like the last whispers of a dying storm. And then, footsteps. Heavy, steady, unhurried. From the blinding haze, the humans emerged. Their armor glowed like living fire, every plate shimmering with stolen power. They no longer looked like soldiers. They looked like something far greater, beings born of war and survival itself. The aliens who had mocked them now stared in paralyzed terror. Weapons slipped from trembling claws. Some dropped to their knees, not out of respect, but out of hopelessness. The laughter that had once mocked human armor was gone forever. High above, aboard the Empire's flagship, Lord Vael sat frozen on his throne. His golden eyes widened as he watched the feed from the surface. He had unleashed the might of the planet cracker, a weapon feared across the stars, and yet they still lived. Not just lived, they thrived. His voice cracked, breaking the silence of the command deck. Impossible. This is impossible. But deep down he already knew the truth. The humans had turned the Empire's greatest strength into their shield. Every strike had only forged them harder, brighter, stronger. On the ground, Captain Rains lifted his rifle. The glowing energy across his armor pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He glanced at his squad, each one radiant with the same unyielding light. They had carried the weight of the planet cracker and survived. Now, it was time to end this. His voice carried across the ruined field, low and calm yet filled with authority. Advance, the word was simple, but it thundered across the battlefield like a war drum. The human soldiers moved forward, unstoppable. Every step was accompanied by the crackle of raw energy, the echo of resilience that had been mocked for too long. Aliens tried to fire in desperation. Plasma bolts, ion beams, all the weapons of their empire lit the sky. But none found purchase. The armor drank it in greedily, glowing brighter with each hit. And then the humans returned fire. Bullets cut through shimmering alien shields like paper. Blades of steel sliced through armor that had once been untouchable. Every swing, every shot was precise, merciless. The battlefield that had once belonged to the Empire now belonged to Earth. Above, panic tore through the alien fleet. Ships broke formation. Captains shouted conflicting orders. Some demanded reinforcements, others screamed for retreat. The great Empire, unchallenged for centuries, was unraveling in real time. General Threx slammed his fists against the command table, his voice cracking. Hold the line. They cannot win! But his words had no weight anymore. His soldiers had seen the truth. They were not fighting mortals. They were fighting survivors who had turned weakness into strength, mockery into terror. The Empire's pride was bleeding out on Earth's soil. Back on the ground, Captain Rains and his squad cut through the last line of resistance. Alien war machines collapsed in fire, their mighty walkers torn apart by kinetic blades. The humans never stopped, never hesitated. When they reached the heart of the battlefield where alien banners once stood tall, Rains raised his hand. His soldiers froze in formation, their glowing armor casting a light across the ruins. Every alien eye turned to them. Every surviving soldier, every officer, even the ones in orbit, watching the feed, felt the weight of that moment. Humans stood victorious, and they did not even look tired, Lord Vael's voice. trembled as he whispered the words no alien had ever spoken. Before, retreat. The command spread across the fleet like wildfire. Engines roared to life, warships broke orbit, and the once proud empire pulled back from Earth in chaos. They had come to conquer, to enslave, to laugh. Now they fled in silence, broken by the very species they had mocked. As the last ships vanished into the void, Captain Rains lowered his rifle. The battlefield was quiet again, but it was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence of victory. His soldiers gathered around him, their armor slowly dimming as the absorbed energy dispersed into the air. The glow faded, but the memory of it would never die. Is it over? One soldier asked softly. Rains looked to the sky where the Empire had vanished. His eyes narrowed. For now, he said. But they'll remember. And he was right. Across the galaxy, stories would spread of the day the Empire laughed at human armor, only to watch it defy their deadliest weapons. The narrator's voice closes the tale. They mocked humanity. They laughed at our crude machines, our heavy armor, our stubborn will. But in their arrogance, they forgot one truth. Humans do not break. Humans endure. And when the galaxy's greatest weapons rose against them, humanity stood unyielding. They laughed at human armor, until it became the nightmare they could never escape. The war was over, at least on the surface. Earth's skies were quiet again. The alien fleet had vanished into the void, broken and humiliated. Cities that had once trembled beneath the shadow of enemy warships now stood in silence, survivors gathering in the ruins, staring at the glowing figures of their defenders. The humans had won, but Captain Rains knew better. Victory was never the end. Victory was the beginning of something new. The armor, once dim and scarred, still pulsed faintly with the energy it had consumed. Soldiers gathered around Rains, their faces pale, their bodies weary but their spirits unbroken. They were no longer just soldiers of Earth. They were symbols, proof that humanity could face the greatest empire in the galaxy and endure. Yet as the glow flickered across his chest plate, Rains felt unease. The armor was not dormant. It was alive in a way. It whispered in the silence of his mind, faint but undeniable. It wanted more. He turned his gaze to the stars. "They'll be back," he murmured. In the void, the alien fleet limped home. What had once been a force of terror was now a shattered armada, carrying with it the weight of humiliation. Lord Vale sat in silence on his throne, staring at the endless stars. His generals spoke cautiously around him, but none dared to meet his gaze. They all knew the truth. Their empire's pride had been broken and fear had taken its place. One general whispered, "The humans, they are not what we thought." Another, voice trembling, said, "We must warn the core worlds. If the Council learns of this defeat, the Empire may fracture." Vile's claws tightened on the armrest of his throne. Shame burned in his chest, but beneath it lay something colder. Hatred. Hatred for the species that had defied him. Hatred for the armor that mocked his weapons. His voice, low and venomous, echoed through the chamber. "They will not remain free. If we cannot break them with power, we will break them with shadows." Back on Earth, humanity celebrated. Cities lit fires in honor of the fallen. Families embraced their soldiers. And across the globe, one truth was whispered like a prayer. We are not weak. We are not broken. We are ready. But in the halls of Earth's high command, the mood was not celebration. It was caution. Scientists examined the armor, dissecting every scar, every glowing seam. They spoke in hushed voices about its hunger, its ability to grow stronger with each attack. "Have we created a shield?" one asked, "or have we awakened something we cannot control?" The armor had saved humanity, but it had also changed it. Captain Rains stood on a balcony overlooking a ruined city. The night was quiet, stars glittering above. His armor rested on a rack beside him, faintly glowing even in the dark. He thought of the soldiers he had lost. He thought of the fleet fleeing into the void. He thought of the weapon, the planet cracker, that had failed to destroy them. And he thought of the look on the aliens' faces, the fear that had spread through their ranks like wildfire. It wasn't just a victory. It was a message. Humanity had been underestimated for the last time. Far away, deep in the Empire's core systems, the story of Earth spread like a virus. Soldiers whispered it in barracks. Civilians repeated it in markets. Generals denied it, but fear was already in their eyes. The legend of the humans grew. Some called them demons, others called them gods. All agreed on one truth. The Empire had met a species that did not break, and in that fear seeds of rebellion began to stir. Worlds long enslaved by the Empire now wondered, if humans could stand against them, why couldn't they? But in the shadows the Empire plotted. Assassins, spies, and saboteurs were dispatched, not to the battlefield, but to the laboratories, the cities, the very heart of Earth. Lord Vael's final words before the Council still rang in the ears of his people. They survived our weapons, but no armor can protect them from what they cannot see. On Earth, Captain Rains donned his armor once more. The glow pulsed against his skin like a heartbeat, alive and restless. He looked to the stars where the Empire had fled, and he felt the weight of what was to come. The first battle was over. But the war had only just begun, and somewhere in the silence of the night, as though the armor itself knew the truth, the faintest whisper echoed in his mind, "Feed."